All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the November 5th, 2024 Public Services Committee. A little bit of housekeeping. If you have cell phones, please either mute them or turn them off. If you approach podium to speak, please turn it on and identify yourself. Clerk, first item.
Number 6, ordinance third reading, amending the official zoning map of the city of Cheyenne, adding the urban use overlay district to land located north of East 21st Street and east of and adjacent to Warren Avenue.
Staff report.
For the record, Connor White, Planning and Development Department. Just as a reminder, this is to add the UU to a single parcel along Warren to allow the property to redevelop with a business. Really no new information. This was approved on second reading. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, have any questions from committee? You see any hands? Okay, questions from committee? Hearing none. Public comment. Public comment. Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
For discussion, I'll second it.
Okay, so a motion is second. Okay, any questions or quick comments from committee?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Seagrave.
I expressed this at the last council meeting. I don't believe there's adequate parking in that area to add another business. I'm not wild about destroying residential neighborhoods with businesses. I've thought a lot about this, and I wondered what I would do if my neighbor came forward and wanted to put a business in his house without enough parking and without the whole neighborhood becoming a commercial. So I will continue to be a no. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Rennie, anything?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I can't say that I disagree strenuously with my colleague from Ward 2. And I too share that, as I stated in council last week, it bothers me that I think by allowing businesses located in residential areas, it weakens our commercial areas. So, but in this case, the camel's nose is under the tent, so to speak. I think the majority of the homes on there are already business occupations. So I think we do need to draw a line somewhere, but I think we're too late to draw a line on this block. So I'll go ahead and support it.
Okay, Mr. Laybourne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I totally agree with previous comments of Mr. Seagrave, and I'll be voting no as well. You have to draw the line somewhere, and there are so many examples, particularly in Ward 1, that really can't get overrun, and that parking is out of control. That's not a good thing. So I think we got to consider the businesses that are already there. So thank you.
Okay. Any further questions or comments from committee? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Dr.
Sorry,
Rennie?
I went ahead and muted. Aye.
Okay, those opposed?
No.
Okay, thank you.
No recommendation.
It's okay.
Number 13, resolution acknowledging receipt of the Rotary Park Master Plan Report.
Okay, staff report.
Chair, members of the committee, Jean Shrednick, Parks and Recreation Planner. The item for consideration is review and acknowledgement of receipt for the Rotary Park Master Plan Report. The 12-acre park property is located at the northwest corner of Delrange Boulevard and Powder House Road. On January 20th, 2024, the city of Cheyenne contracted with DHM Design to develop a master plan for the park, city contract number 7882. The site was donated to the city by the Cheyenne Rotary Club Foundation on April 24th, 2024. The master plan will serve as a guideline for the future design, construction, and operation of the new community park. We have Matthew Whipple and Paige Ida with DHM, and Jean McDonald with GLM Design here today to provide just a short presentation.
Thank you.
Everyone, my name is Paige Ida. I'm with DHM Design. So thank you today for joining to hear about the Rotary Park Master Plan. I'm going to give a brief overview of our process that we came to get to this document. So as Jeannie said, Rotary Park's located in North Cheyenne by the airport. It's southeast of Mylar Park, but it is a separate park from Mylar. It's also located in the Powder House Corridor Drainage Way, which is the light green on the screen. But as you can see, the dark green represents Rotary Park. So it's just a portion of this drainage way. Next. So as we kicked off the project, we met with the Rotary Club to learn about their vision for the space and also the goals that they wanted to see in the park. Next. We then developed 3 unique concepts that took advantage of different opportunities found within the site. And we took these to both the Rotary Club and city staff to pare them down to 2 alternatives to share with the public. So a brief overview of these alternatives. The first one we're calling Meandering Creek, and the idea here is that the park features are connected by this meandering trail that winds through the site. So users would kind of experience a series of spaces throughout the park. And the second one we're calling Agriculture Roots. So this design kind of gave a nod to like the agriculture heritage, and that's carried throughout like the planting design and playground theming. We then took these 2 alternatives to the community open house event that was open to the public, and here they're able to view both alternatives and provide feedback and comment on features they liked about each one. Overall, we thought it was pretty well attended and we got a lot of comments. So after that, we came back as a group with the Rotary Club and the city staff and decided to move forward the Meandering Creek option as our preferred alternative. And in general, these are some of the features you could see at this future park. And overall, it had a focus on more of like a nature play theme. So a quick overview of the park. Parking is provided along Hoy Road, and that connects into an entry plaza and also some smaller trails that lead to kind of this central trail that connects to the existing regional trail along Del Range. You can see the center of the park is focused on that natural play theme playground, and there are 2 shade structures, one more by the playground and the other one overlooks that riparian corridor. We've also provided a couple gathering spaces, so you can see there's an outdoor amphitheater as well as more of a natural classroom right along the dry creek. And we've used water-wise plantings throughout the park, as well as provided overstory and ornamental trees to provide some buffers from the adjacent roadways and give shade to some of the park features. So in addition to putting together a site plan, we did an opinion probable cost. And the park in today's dollars is coming in between 3.1 to 3.2 million. And we anticipate, since there's not current funding for this, the price would increase by the time it's getting implemented. We also put together a grant strategy. So this included this letter as well as a matrix for targeting grants that could be providing future funding for this park. So with that, that's my overview. It was great to be on this initial part of the design, and we look forward to the future of this park. Open up to questions.
Do you have any questions from committee?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Seagrave?
first of all, I want to thank you. I really like the products that you put together. When I attended the public meeting, there was some discussion on parking. Some of the neighbors were concerned that there might be not enough parking and that the citizens would park on the north side of Hoy Road in front of their homes. And at one point, we talked about maybe doing some, creating some more spots by doing a diagonal parking. Have you explored that at all, or is it too early for that? Or
I would say we hadn't explored it in the final master plan, but since this is kind of a big picture idea, that could be something to be explored when we get to the next phase of the design, development and construction.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
That's the only question I had.
Dr. Rennie, do you have any questions?
No, Mr. Chairman, I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Pete, any questions, sir?
I have no questions.
Okay, thank you. I think we're good.
Good,
Yeah.
go. Thank you.
Any further public comment? Staff report, public comment?
This on?
Yes.
Brent Lathrop, I'm president of the Cheyenne Rotary Club Foundation. And I want to just comment, this is a good product. I think it's a good basis for the future development of the park. And we look forward to working with the city. The Rotary Club Foundation also stated in our gift to the city that we would work on helping with funding and trying to identify that. And that's going to be an issue coming up. I think all of us know that. In any project in any urban area in the United States, I think. So anyway, but encourage that we move forward on this and really put our heads together on the next stage to get into the details and also to get this funding figured out. We want to get this thing up and running and don't want to have it sitting there as a pasture for another 5 or 10 years, not what we want. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Okay, any further public comment? Public comment. Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I would move to adopt.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from committee? Comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Hey.
Aye.
Oh. Okay.
Number 14, resolution expressing the intent of the governing body repealing and replacing resolution number 6127 governing the creation and administration of the Innovation and Entrepreneur Advisory Council.
Staff report.
Thank you. Richard Johnson, 612 McGovern Avenue. So this is one of the resolutions I addressed at the last Public Service Committee in regards to the repeals that I've been looking through boards. Over the summer, I was talking with individuals amongst the community in regards to what I want to do in regards to dissolving boards that had been inactive. During one of those speeches, I had ran into Sam Weinstein, who I've asked to come here with me today in regards to this specific committee. Sam told me that instead of actually dissolving it, it would probably be better to bring new life into it. So right after the primary election, Sam and I met with the mayor, set a goal for ourselves of what we wanted to do in regards to this resolution, what we were looking for in regards to innovation and entrepreneurship to revitalize this board since it had not met since the winter of 2022. So it's roughly been about 2 years since their meeting. And this committee was actually only created in 2021. So they were really only active for about 1.5 years before everything fell apart. So with that, I will turn this over to Sam Weinstein and he will tell you of what his vision was when I pitched this to him.
Mr. Weinstein, welcome.
Good afternoon, Sam Weinstein, 1311 Rabbit Brush Trail. That meeting with Councilman Johnson, my exact wording was, I helped out on for Greater Cheyenne, and I think we all remember where that went and not really much of anywhere, but I was able to chair the entrepreneurship section of for Greater Cheyenne, and the work that was able to be done within the city. My group, the University of Wyoming and LCCC did spur growth of startup jobs and employees within Laramie County and Southeast Wyoming. I do think that there's plenty of work to do and people that want to do it. And I've seen what happens when the city and the people communicate and connect to do a project like this. So I'm excited for it. I'm very hopeful that this gets adopted and that some work can be done within the city of Cheyenne to assist business owners and startups. Thanks.
Any questions from committee for staff? Questions from committee? Hearing none, public comment. Any public comment? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to adopt.
Second,
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from committee?
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Rooney.
Dr. Rennie?
Yeah, I kind of knew the history of this. I remembered it being a really recent board, and I also realized that it had quit functioning 2 years ago. So essentially, we didn't have it for very long. We went many years without it before, and we haven't had it for the past 2 years. So my question had been, what benefit did we get out of it, and why should we even bother to reconstitute it? But listening to Mr. Weinstein's enthusiasm and his vision, I'm willing to give it a try and go ahead and move it forward and see if we can resurrect it and make it a valuable part of the city.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions from committee? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Number 15, resolution acknowledging receipt of a petition by the City of Cheyenne Planning Commission to add the UU urban use overlay to an area zone MUR mixed use residential emphasis with frontage on the east side of Warren Avenue between 21st and 22nd Streets and directing staff to initiate a zoning map amendment pursuant to the petition.
Staff report.
And Chair, members of the committee, Charles Bloom, Planning and Development Director. That'd be great. While we're getting that taken care of, I just wanted to note that this is a petition by the Planning Commission not to rezone property, not to commit to establishing a zone for property. It is just asking for the city council to direct staff to proceed with a zoning application that would be reviewed through the appropriate channels. In this case, this is related to the earlier item today, where the Planning Commission had a desire that the entire block face along that section of Warren be rezoned to urban use overlay. So this would include the property that was discussed earlier this afternoon, and also the surrounding properties, including a couple of other properties right now that are developed with non-residential uses. In this area, the properties immediately to the west on the other side of Warren, those are all zoned central business district. So they have the central business district standards, which don't require parking, don't require design standards and such. The Planning Commission's reasoning with this request was this could be a transition from the CBD zone district to the mixed use residential, mixed use business districts to the east and north of this area. And I will pull up the aerial imagery real quick so you all can understand where this is. I'm going to pass on that. It's just going to take a little bit longer for this computer to even consider joining the meeting. It's taken a while just to start up.
We have maps.
Perfect. So that map clearly shows it. So what this resolution does is essentially just direct staff to proceed with the zoning application. We would forward it to the Planning Commission for review and recommendation. They would hold a public hearing. We would give notice to all property owners within 300 feet of the area established for zoning and the people within the area. And then upon Planning Commission's recommendation, we would forward it to the governing body for review as an ordinance, similar to what you have seen for that first item on today's agenda. I'm open for any questions that you may have regarding this.
Okay. Do we have any
Request.
questions for staff? Questions for
No.
staff? Okay. Any public comment? Public comment. Hearing none, may I have a motion? So, Dr. Rennie, do you have anything from you or?
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve the petition. We kind of know where the votes are going to go on this, but this way we at least have a recommendation for next week.
Okay. Mr. Laybourne, anything from you?
I'm a no.
I don't think we have a second, do we, Mr. Chairman?
No.
We do not. I was just checking for, with the Zoom participants to make sure they had no comments or questions. Okay, so we have no second, so no recommendation. Okay, next item.
Number 16, resolution directing city staff to research and develop a plan to initiate the process to pave the road on Birch Place between Charles Street and Cheyenne Street and install curb, gutter, and sidewalks.
Staff report.
Hi, once again, Richard Johnson, 612 McGovern Avenue. With this one, this was actually requested of me by the family that lives on this block to look into it. After further research, which I provided you some of the microfiche films, Dr. Rennie and Councilman Lamborn, Jennifer's going to scan those in so that they can be emailed, and then the clerk's office is actually going to find the minutes to be disseminated amongst all of us. But that doesn't really stop me, even though we have language from as far back as 1964, in this case, 60 years ago, that we've been working in regards to paving this road. And so when I was initially contacted by the city engineer in regards to this resolution and the city attorney's office, I was advised, you know, that the family had actually turned this down in 1979, 1980. So at the time, this has been going on for about 3 months. I called former Mayor Don Erickson to see if because when we were started looking into this, they thought there might have been a potential lawsuit against the city at that point of why this road, of all of them that are in that area, were not done. And Mayor Erickson advised me that he could not remember any lawsuit. But once again, he told me that was 45 years ago, Richard, and he probably wasn't going to remember everything, but he remembered lawsuits, not street paving, but lawsuits he said he remembered. So he told me that he didn't remember any lawsuits out there. So going back to the family, I told them, I was like, well, I've already had staff kind of initiate some of the work in regards to what happened back in 1979, 1980. And then from the document on the microfiche today, it goes back to 1964. And so what this resolution does is it asks city staff to, because like I've talked to some of you independently in regards to, you know, whether or not we create a new, you know, service level neighborhood, you know, incentive to actually go out and pave this. Where this came from was after we did the National Cemetery Road, after the VA told us that they weren't going to do it, the city actually went and paved that road. And then I've heard other examples throughout the community where the city did actually pave roads. And so I'm seeking out those resolutions as well. This resolution does not ask them to basically go out and pave the road. It's looking for options. And if one of those options is to just start a new conversation in 2024, 25 with the families, because at that time, East was on the top of the hill, and that was pretty much the edge of Cheyenne up to that, with the exception of some, you know, the county pockets that we're currently looking into. But the traffic through this area has actually increased exponentially with the development of Cary Junior High. And that's one of the reasons why the neighbor, or this specific street, had talked with both Michelle and I about, you know, potentially, is there any other avenues to look into in regards to paving this? Because right now, with the amount of dirt, debris, and everything else that's getting tossed up with everybody going into Cary Junior High, it's become more of a safety hazard in regards to that. And I did advise the family, like I stated, that, you know, I have the records from 1979, 1980, that they came before council and asked, you know, that they not approve that specific district due to the liens on their homes and the percentages of increase in regards to construction at that time. So my resolution still stands that I would appreciate if city staff can, you know, work with those families and open up conversations in the current millennia.
Any questions for staff?
Mr. Chair.
Um,
Councilman, don't we already have a program that does this? Why would we want to recreate it?
Can you, okay, so, okay, can you,
City street management program?
the pavement management program, that one?
Pavement management program?
So does that actually, okay, okay, Vicky, do you have in regards to this is regarding, because would that be a petition for the applicants to actually go for the pavement program to get into that? I guess I don't know the logistics of how this was. That's why I wrote the resolution for staff to look into it, to see if it's even possible and what options are available.
Vicky?
I had planned on speaking to this, Vicky Nemechek, Public Works, also 6239 Kevin Avenue. As a citizen, I would also be opposed to this. I have received numerous questions about just this subject over my 20+ years of, everybody wants their road paved when it's gravel. But the fact is that when you purchase your home, you purchase the infrastructure that surrounds it. So when a developer builds, they build, and you'll always hear a developer talk about how they can make it pencil out. If we ask them to do extra drainage work, or we ask them to do extra roads, it's always about, will it pencil out? Which means, can they sell the houses for what it costs them plus a reasonable profit to make enough to make money? That's what they do. They build developments, build houses, that kind of thing. So when you buy your home, you buy the surrounding infrastructure. You buy the road, you buy the utilities, you buy the curb, gutter, and sidewalk, you buy everything that surrounds your home. If you buy a gravel road, then that's what you paid for. Your house is cheaper because gravel roads are cheaper to build. I understand that even in annexation, we take in areas that are gravel, but the fact is still that those homeowners paid for a gravel road. They did not pay for an asphalt road. So it is the neighbor's responsibility to then improve that road, not the taxpayers. So if they wanted to establish an improvement district, just like they did at one time, and then backed out of it because it was too expensive. Again, it's not the taxpayer's responsibility to now go in and improve not only the area, but to improve the value of their homes. That would not be what the taxpayer should be paying for. And I've talked about this to mayors, council members, citizens throughout the years. There is a clear path, and it's through an improvement district, not a pavement management program. A pavement management program is designed to maintain the roads in the state that they were built. So if it was built a gravel road, it would be maintained as a gravel road. If it were built in concrete, it would be maintained as concrete. If it were built in asphalt, it would be maintained in asphalt. Same thing if there were curb, gutter, and sidewalk, it would be maintained with the curb, gutter, and sidewalk. If there were not curb, gutter, and sidewalk, for example, along Nation Way, we would not maintain it in that way. So the pavement management is just about maintenance, maintaining it to the spec that it was built to at the time it was built. So I also think that it would set a bad precedent because I'm not sure how many miles we have at this point of gravel road. Probably plus 20+. If we do this, I think that we would be setting a precedent that we would have to go and do it all. And the city can't afford it.
Vicky, just a quick question. It's kind of tickling at the edge of my memory, but didn't we at one point have a revolving fund or a revolving loan fund for curb and gutter, things like that? I think it was like 200,000 and nobody took advantage of it.
Mr. Mayor, or Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Mark.
we did years ago have a fund where we would loan people money at 2% in order to do those improvements. And you are correct, there was maybe only one homeowner that actually stepped up and used it.
Okay, thank you.
And Vicky Nemechek, Public Works, that was through the 1% sales tax.
Okay. Any further questions or comments from staff? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Since Director Nemechek brought it up, she had mentioned that they could do an improvement district, the homeowners in the area could do an improvement district, but do they initiate that? And I'm just curious, what is the process for that?
Chair, members of the board, Charles Bloom, Planning and Development Director. We've actually researched this a little bit and the statutes haven't changed too much regarding establishment of an improvement district over the course of the years. And we'll double check and make sure we get all the information together as Tom Cobb and I have been working to make sure we can get some clear information together to distribute to property owners in the future. But essentially what has to occur for an improvement district is members that want to be in a district need to approach the governing body, and they have to provide 50% of the property owners of the area to be in the improvement district. They have to be more than that, they have to sign a petition saying we want to create an improvement district. In addition, at the time of that petition, they have to have an engineer's estimate that's prepared that says this is what the cost of those improvements is anticipated to be. And then that would allow for the, essentially the tax, the assessment to be defined on all those properties in that improvement district area. Once that petition is received and acknowledged by the governing body and they're given authorization to move forward, then they have a certain time period, I believe it's 12 months, where they're required to then come forward with final bid documents and final costs. And there are statutory limitations that state that those final costs cannot exceed, I believe it's 110 or 120% of that initial bid. So they're required to fall in within a certain price range. Over the course of the last year, we've had a lot of issues with cost rising dramatically and quickly. That could have some troubles with the improvement districts being formed, but those have stabilized. Well, not stabilized, they haven't been increasing as much. And I believe the specific case of Birch, I think something along those lines had occurred, but the price was a lot higher than expected. But long story short, that's how the process works for an improvement district. There's a lot of legwork by the property owners up front, council action, and then gathering and reviewing of bid documents and estimates.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
so for Mr. Bloom, if Birch has been looked at in the past, do we have cost estimates for that area already? Or do they?
Chair, members of the committee, and Dr. Rennie, Tom Cobb, the city engineer, had we had located some of those original documents, but he and I would still need to run through those to review those. And those numbers are dated. They're from the late 70s, early 80s. So they would need to be revised for current city standards.
Let's take that price.
Yeah.
They're
you get that
significant-
price.
We can-
They'd
We
be
get that
significantly
price.
dated, yeah. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Then when you're ready, I have a question of the sponsor.
Go ahead.
So to the three sponsors from council members from Ward 3, how much detail are they wanting? I mean, do they want our engineering department to actually evaluate this and provide the engineering documents and estimates that it would take to do it? How much detail is our staff supposed to go into? And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, Mr. Bloom, if you're the one to answer that or one of the sponsors. So.
And Chair, members of the committee, I can answer that. Historically, what has occurred there is that is a cost that is borne by the petitioners, the ones requesting the district, where they would have an engineer that they would hire, prepare that estimate. Likely before any engineering estimate is provided to the governing body as part of a petition, our city engineering department and construction would likely review that to double check accuracy. But the initial preparation of those design drawings and those estimates, that would be the burden of the property owners in that district.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I understand that if we're doing a special improvement district, but in going back to the resolution and the requests on behalf of the council members from Ward 3 again, that's my question to them. How much depth are they anticipating or wanting to see with these resolutions? Are they wanting our engineering department to just look at it and give ballpark estimates? Or do they want actual designs and accurate cost estimates? And finally, do they have any time frame envisioned? I didn't see one in the resolution.
The last part I can answer immediately. It was written with no timeline. The second or one of your parts was I wrote this extremely vague since I had spoken with engineering and things like that, but actually with new information that was provided today, like even from going from the pavement management study, which we says now does not apply to this, to going into the improvement district. So that I kind of stick by where I wrote it, that it would start the conversation. I mean, if I have to start the conversation, you know, this afternoon when I call the family and say, you know, that the resolution failed and here's why, and here's what you need to do. And then I would basically tell them if they're still interested in this, that they would actually have to sign or get a petition with, at least from what I understand from Mr. Bloom, 50% of the occupants on that, or property owners on that specific block, or on that block, to actually get the signatures, come down to the city clerk's office, file their petition with it. Then that petition would then go on to the engineers, and then the engineering department and other departments would then work with the actual applicants of that specific block face to get this work done. As far as the reason I wrote like monetary amounts in there is because of the word contingency fund. This was one project that Michelle and I had talked about, that if there was to be any seed money to get this through, because after we learned how much it cost for the National Cemetery Street, if that was what the going rate was for what we did for the cemetery, that's what the kind of the numbers we were looking for. So we were looking for other motivations. As you stated in one of your previous comments, that it sounds like it had no material aspect to it on the 1%, creating the $200,000, you know, for curb and gutter. I don't know if that conversation needs to be reopened, if now, not only with this resolution, but the following one, if now there's actually applicants out there that can take knowledge of what this goes on, where more assistance it can be provided. I know my background on this is going back to 2018, when I worked with the city attorney's office, where people had actually committed their funds at 1970s, 1980s prices, and we had nothing written into code where we had to refund those people back because the road had never been done, and so they wanted their $12,000 back that had been basically sitting in a city account, you know, to get done. So I know that there was activity from individuals in Ward 3 when I wrote that resolution. So once again, going back to what the resolution was, it was asking staff, you know, to provide the roadmap, you know, for individuals, especially on this block face, that, you know, if there was options that the city could provide to them for assistance, or if it was strictly all on them again, then that's where I would leave it up to, you know, what I wrote.
Dr. Rennie.
All right. No, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And Mark, Doug Klon's behind me. I don't know if you can see that, but I think he,
I can see Doug's, no, not me, no, please. I can see Doug standing.
Okay, further comment.
Mr. Chair, Doug Klon, City Construction Manager. So just in a brief preparation for this resolution this morning, we did some quick takeoffs for Birch Place. Just to compare it to other jobs where we've got full reconstruct or something that we could put some average pricing to. And this section of Birch Place is approximately 630 feet long. Based on current pricing conditions and design fees that we would have to incorporate to have something like this designed, I've got this estimated to be somewhere in the $2.5 to $3 million to construct this from scratch with design fees. We've seen well over a 23% increase in materials and labor, and even in the design world as it comes to doing these. So that just gives you an idea. I mean, that is not, we didn't drill down to the exact foot, but we threw some curb gutter, all the sidewalk at it. The paving, minimal, what it would require to remove dirt and replace it with a structural base. That doesn't take into account any drainage improvements that you would have to address if there are issues with elevations, and there are far more things that you could drill down into. But as a ballpark price, that's the kind of price we're looking at for 600 to 800 feet of street construction. And then just to address quickly Richard's comparison to possibly like the VA Cemetery Road, that road was considerably cheaper because we were able to use in place a lot of the existing materials as the base material. And additionally, there was very little sidewalk and curb and gutter for the overall scope of that project. So it was much easier to construct and would have been therefore much more affordable.
Do we know how many houses are on this? How many? I can hold that up over here, Doug, if that'll help.
So, Mr. Chairman, this is stating that we've got 17 houses that address to that street. There are other houses that are backing to that street, I believe, but it looks like we have 17 houses that are city property and 4 houses that are still part of a county pocket adjacent to that street.
So essentially, we'd have to break 2.8 million up over 17 houses,
21.
21 houses. So you're looking at 100 and change.
Essentially, that's, if I'm understanding, what Mr. Bloom described, then yes.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions for Doug from committee? Okay, any public comment? Okay, turn that on.
Thank you. Cassie Pickett, Engineering Manager. Chair, I just wanted to provide some additional information on discussions I've had regarding this subject. With the county being at a lower, different standard than the city, during annexations for commercial properties, we're trying to enforce that they get the infrastructure up to city standards from those county standards prior to annexation. So that's the effort being made towards commercial properties. Now, residential properties are being annexed in without improvements to the infrastructure up to city standard because of the financial impact it would be for that one commercial resident. A lot of this, or some of the instances have been because they're needing BOPU water and sewer. So they're wanting to annex in order to utilize city utilities. But then they aren't required to update to the infrastructure to city standard. So I think it would be expensive to do just these two situations, but it is something that may continue until we get something resolved to address infrastructure that doesn't meet city standard with the properties that are being annexed. So developing the use of the improvement district may not just apply to these two, but also future instances where we're annexing in county parcels. Just wanted to know.
Any questions from committee? Okay, any further public comment?
Mr. Chair, Doug Klon, Construction Manager. I always believe in admitting when you're wrong, and I'm wrong. The valuation I gave you was based on a mile, $2.5 to $3.5 million per mile. As an individual street, Birch Place would be more along the lines of about $500,000 with design fees between $500,000 and $600,000. So I needed to correct that. That was when I sat down, that looked extremely high. That's because I projected out per mile costs. So
So you're looking at about $1 million.
for Birch
For Birch.
Place, approximately $500,000, 500 to
And that
600,000,
includes
still rough
design and
numbers.
everything? That
Yes,
would include okay,
Yes, sir.
further public comment?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Patrick Collins. When I read this, I struggled a little bit because I think I understand what the sponsors are trying to do, and that is to help the neighborhood find a place to start. But I very much agree with our Public Works Director that the responsibility for paving dirt roads belongs to the people who live on those dirt roads. And asking our staff to spend their time to help them with the design and do that. They're already strapped enough, as you guys know. Our engineering department, with all the growth that's happening in our community right now, I just don't know that they have the bandwidth to take on a project that we're not going to end up building. And so I think there's a way forward on this one. It sounds like it's a $500,000 or $600,000 project divided by 20 properties. You know, yeah, $25,000 a property. It is not a big number. And, you know, you can go out, we can do an improvement district. It would be a very small amount every year. They just need to choose to do it. And so I would ask that you not put this on staff. They have enough to do their regular day jobs. And, you know, I really do want to be supportive of seeing these roads paved. I get it. I wouldn't want to live on a dirt road. I much prefer to live on a paved road, but we paid for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for the mayor? Okay, further public comment.
Frank Strong with the Cheyenne Board of Public Utilities. I think in this situation, water and sewer exist in Birch, but please keep in mind on some of these other locations, water and sewer isn't even present. So that would need to be incorporated if you're going forward with pavement, because you don't want to tear up the pavement later to put in water and sewer. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any further public comments?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, City Councilman Ken Escobar, Ward 3. I do agree with everything that's been said, but I think we have to start looking outside that box too. So when the school district went into this area and they put in the new stadium and the new junior high school, Cheyenne Street was paved. And I'm not sure if it was either the school district that paved from where the roundabout is to Ridge Road. So that's your east-west street. But Birch, we have that just short little piece of dirt road there. So coming into an improvement district where part of the buy-in is from the residents, part of the buy-in here could have been from the school district. We have a lot of other major industries coming into the city, and some of those are impacting county pocket residents where a lot of those dirt roads are. So I don't know if we can come together to come up with some other type of a plan that helps fund an improvement district as well as that part of the buy-in as well. But these are situations that aren't part of that 20 miles of dirt road that we have in the city. But as we keep annexing more, we're going to probably find these tiny little pieces of a dirt road that do need to have those infrastructure improvements put in.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Further public comment? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to adopt.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second for discussion.
Yep. So I have a motion, a second. Any questions or comments from committee?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Seagrave.
I'm going to repeat what's already been stated, but you know, the folks that live on paved streets paid for those. And I'd love to help these folks if we can in some way. But the bottom line is, if they want to do it in the near future, I think they're going to have to go back and revisit the process that they voted against back in 1979. Sounds like they went down this trail, created the district, got the bids, and at that point didn't want to pay for it, and then asked the city to cancel the improvement district. So really nothing's changed as far as process since the late 70s. But if they're serious about getting their road paved, I think that's probably the best way to go about it. I'm not a mathematician, but just the rough numbers that we received, it looks like it'd be about $25,000 per house. I'm sure they could finance that over a 20-year period. They're looking at $1,200–1,500 a year, and that seems pretty reasonable to me. So I would encourage them to move forward with their district. Thank you.
And Vicky, I've got a quick question. So if they go through the district, they take care of paving the road, curb gutter. At that point, do they turn it over to the city and that goes into our pavement management?
Vicky Nemechek, Public Works, yes, that's correct. As long as they meet the specifications as required by the city would then maintain it as that, as it has been improved.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments from committee? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Okay, be no recommendation. Next item?
Number 17, resolution directing city staff to research and develop a plan to initiate the process to pave the road on Ridge Road between Hillcrest Road and Stevens Drive and install curb, gutter, and sidewalks.
Okay, can I have a staff report?
First of all, I'd just like to actually applaud city staff. I learned a lot. I know that was a lot of dialogue, but that was actually very educational. So I don't regret writing that resolution at all. But I'm going to go in a different direction with Ridge after.
Could you identify?
Oh,
yourself?
sorry, Richard Johnson, 612 McGovern. So on this one actually, once again, was constituent driven. And this one's a little odd because we actually, I can't figure out if we actually vacated it. It looks like we vacated Ridge from Hillcrest down to Stevens, and on both end caps, there's barricades. On the south side on Stevens, there's more of a green path types things, but this actually stemmed from a lot of nuisance complaints. And so it's when I talked to former city councilman Jim Brown, that's who I was talking with in regards to this. We brought up the fact that when this road was actually barricaded, that and if you all received your email last night from one of the individuals in the neighborhood who wrote a very, very well drafted email in regards to this Ridge Road, he brought up the fact that there was a bad car accident that kind of, when that was, people actually used it as a driving road, that it smashed through stuff and caused extensive damage. So if you haven't read that person's email, I would encourage you to do it because it did actually offer a different stance on this. But it was interesting in that email that they actually brought up former Councilman Brown, who I had spoken with. And so he had brought up about another street that's, out off of Story Boulevard on whether or how the city actually paid for Chief Washakie to be paved, because he was saying that there was no actually faces of the houses that face Chief Washakie, just like in this example, all of it is basically driveways, garages on both sides of the street. And so when we talked about like the amount of nuisance, because even if you look at an aerial view of this street from Ridge Road south of Hillcrest to Stevens, it's basically become a no man's land dumping area. You can see from the aerial photographs that it's nothing but abandoned cars, RVs, and you can even see the garbage from the aerial view. So this has just become a dumping ground. And so with this one, I brought it up to Jim to say, would it be beneficial if we actually paved it? Because even though it's driveway or, garages going back out onto the street, at least we know that when people are driving, north from Stevens and Barbell and everything to the south, headed north and south, that at least we would see, that drivers would see that there wasn't like a lot of just dumping like what's currently going on there. And potentially it could open up a corridor into that one. And Jim explained that he didn't understand why, that this street was just end capped. And so I have the clerk's office looking into the resolution of why Ridge was actually capped at both ends of it, and whether there was possibilities if this actually, fell under nuisance complaints. Because if you look at Google Maps and you look at Laramie County GIS and you look at all the other different mapping systems, this still shows as Ridge Road. But is it really Ridge Road or is it Ridge Alley? Like, it's so interesting to see how this is actually labeled on all mapping systems that it looks like it is a pedestrian corridor, or excuse me, not pedestrian, excuse me, an automotive corridor, but in fact, it's not. And so this is something that we're looking at, that I brought up with Councilman Brown to say, is this a possibility to, enhance it? Once again, from what we learned on the last resolution, if this road is a little longer than Birch, I believe that, if the property owners that happen to be, on either side of Ridge Alley are responsible for paving of this, or is this going to just fall under a nuisance no man's land for dumping of vehicles and trash?
Mr.
since we really don't know what this is it a street? Is it an alley? I'm wondering if we should just wait a couple of weeks until we get all the information so we can really analyze it.
Unless the mayor has, do you have anything or do you have a meeting?
Cassie Pickett, engineering manager. So the functional classification states that this section of Ridge Road is a local road. Now, it is not built out to the local road city standards, that's true, but it is classified as a local road.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, spent some time with GIS yesterday, and this was part of the Sun Valley first filing in 1958. And when they annexed it, I guess they used the road as the demarcation of the annexation, and they actually annexed it in the middle of the road. Today, we would annex to the far side of it, so we'd build it. So they annexed it to the middle. It is classified as a city-owned road, according to the GIS. And then when they did the next one in 1999, they annexed the other half of that road. And I think that's why it didn't get built, was we only owned half a road and when we first built it. And then the second half of the annexation, a number of years later, they annexed the second half of it. And so it was just left as a dirt road through that period of time. But it is classified as, according to GIS, as a city right-of-way, not an easement.
Any further questions from the committee? I have a quick question, Mr. Johnson. Was this neighborhood driven? Did the constituents talk to you about this, or was there something?
So this is actually, like I said, this came from a nuisance call and then stemmed into that because the nuisance complaint is neighborhood driven. But the way that the houses that they are complaining on the nuisances happened to be along this corridor. And so that's why it was just like, okay, is this in fact a road, which they now say it is, and then now if it, got cut in half or whatever with the annexations, that's interesting that the developers didn't want to, pay for any part of it, so that kind of leaves us in even a weirder no man's land. And then we probably had a resolution, I would have guessed, from what the email said from the individual last night, it sounds like a petition would have been drafted from the neighborhood to actually cap it. But that was more for a traffic concern, which now there's no traffic on it because technically it's capped on both ends. And then, now it's become a nuisance hazard. So really, that's why when Jim and I spoke was more to say, okay, can we improve this district or improve this road, by actually making it a drivable surface instead of a dumping ground. So as far as the complaint or the request for a road, no, that was Jim and I's conversation that stemmed out of multiple nuisance complaints that through that corridor. And this was just an idea to actually alleviate the concern in regards to all the abandoned cars, RVs, and garbage that's piled up in that vacation.
So since it is classified as a city road now, can we send compliance out there?
Technically, I would say yes, because they'll have to find a way into it. I'm sure that it looks like, those vehicles had to get there some way, so I'm sure they're running around the barricade at some point. So I think nuisance could go in there. And I know nuisance was already looking into these complaints because I've already had the email thread with John Palmer that he's been working with Councilman Brown, in regards to getting these done. I already have that email thread. This was an idea that Jim and I had in regards to, future concerns of actually opening it up for vehicular traffic so that it wasn't just a collecting point for garbage.
Thank you. Any further staff?
And Chair, members of the committee, just want to provide additional clarification on how people get in there. I actually discovered this area just a couple weeks ago. I hadn't known it existed. So on the northern terminus of that roadway, there are two type 3 barricades on either side. There's a travel path in the middle that everyone uses for access that gets them in there too. The garages and stuff that access to the Sun Valley Addition, which is located to the east. The lots to the west, they do not really have any access to the alley because there's a great elevation difference. There's a large hillside there. The southern terminus, which is just above is it Worth Road, I believe? There is a radius that was constructed with that subdivision, just with the curb curving. But they have that completely blocked off, so there's no access from the south whatsoever. So anyone coming in, they enter and leave through the north through about a 20-foot wide gap between two of the barricades. And it's just a gravel rock surface. It's a very wide alley.
Thank you. Okay. Any comments or questions from committee? Okay, public comment. Public comment. Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Move to adopt.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
For discussion, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from committee?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Seagrave.
I guess I don't see a lot of difference between this one and the prior discussion, the prior resolution. However, this one, we don't even really have the residents asking for it, so clearly, if they want to improve it, there's a way to do it, and that would be through the same process. So I will continue to be a no.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions from committee? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Mr. Laborn vote?
Mr. Laborn, are you?
Yeah, no.
Okay, thank you. Okay, there's no recommendation.
Number 18E, grant of utility easement between the city of Cheyenne and the Cheyenne Board of Public Utilities on city-owned property situated in the south half of section 35, township 14 north, range 66 west of the 6 PM, Laramie County.
Staff report.
Chair, members of the committee. This is a grant to the Board of Public Utilities for an existing water line. It's on property that we've been purchasing just north of the UP Railroad, the Lewick property. I think we purchased maybe a year ago. It's an existing water line, and it will just, we'll do the easement, and then we can move forward finishing up our plans on the Sun Valley to Kiwanis Park Greenway design.
Okay, any questions or comments from committee? Questions or comments? Okay, public comment. Public comment? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from committee? Comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I did. Who was on that?
I'm an aye. Tom was. Councilman Laborn's muted still.
Yeah. So this
I'm
moves
an
forward.
aye.
He's an aye. So motion moves forward. So since there's no other business in front of the Public Services Committee, we are adjourned. Who's the